Welcome to Break Everything. Your host, Lisa L. Levy, will guide you through critical thought conversations and a journey of directed disruption that makes a difference. Experience bold conversations with industry leaders who are willing to challenge the status quo.
Welcome to another edition of Break Everything, where we have interesting conversations with disruptive leaders who are making a real difference in healthcare. Today with us, we have Bob Maguire. He is the founder, president, and CEO of BioLab Sciences, an innovative regenerative medical company focused on developing new ways to regenerate the body to optimal performance. With more than 30 years experience in leadership, operations, and sales management, Bob oversees the product strategy and vision for the company. He founded BioLab Sciences after surviving a life-altering moment in which he realized he wanted to do more and to help people and leave a lasting impact. After years of research and identifying how many individuals suffer from chronic health, pain, and wound issues, he was determined to find a solution. Years of research combined with his prior experience leading a biotech company that was focused on research and collaboration with top universities and hospitals have culminated in the formation of BioLab Sciences. Today, Bob and his team are on a mission to uncover how the body's own cells and tissues can be used to improve quality of life for people around the world. Bob holds his bachelor's degree in business from Manhattan College and an executive master's MBA from Arizona State University. Bob, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thanks for having me, Lisa. I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Bob and I have had conversations like this once before. And Bob has always been a great supporter of my experiments and contributed to the content for Future Proofing Cubed a few years ago. And I appreciate you giving me more of your time today. For everybody who's listening, Bob, can you tell us about your background and how you found your way into healthcare?
Sure. Well, I started back east in New York in sales. You learn in New York City quickly if sales is for you or not. You learn quickly that if you leave without getting the sales, someone will come in behind you and get it. Fast forward to from 1983 when I graduated college to 2013, 30 years later when I graduated from Arizona State University. I had a rollover accident in my vehicle. It was the very last day of school, April 27, 2013. It got me thinking the next day as I was on a flight to Rochester, New York, am I doing everything I can to help people to make a difference? And what's my life worth? What am I doing? And I determined at the end of the day, I was helping people save money and become more efficient and optimizing their businesses. But I really wanted to help people. And that's when I started down the path of regenerative medicine and biotechnology and coming up with ways to help the body heal, which in turn helps people have a better quality of life.
And really, people talk about that, my life changed in a moment, but for you, it's a real true story that your whole focus shifted.
Absolutely. I consider April 27th my second birthday. It totally rewired me or changed me. I had a rollover accident. I literally didn't have a scratch on me. The officers said that they had pulled bodies out of vehicles with much less damage. So I considered myself very lucky. And I figured that at this point I'm living on borrowed time, that I want to do as much as I can to make a difference and be impactful.
And with that, as you made the transition into biosciences and ultimately into your current role, I know that there was a bit of a journey in that experience for you, but now that you're really sitting strongly in the president CEO space, what's the best part about your role?
Well, I think a couple things, Lisa. One is helping people heal. Seeing the outcomes, the results, when we get pictures, we get feedback from physicians. We had one patient that had a 30-year non-healing wound that healed. He and his daughter were in tears. seeing the people in our laboratory when they see the results that they create or the products that they create. And then I think the best part of it is the people, working with the people, making the culture fun, making it a place that people want to come to be. I know a term you're familiar with, adaptive transformation, obviously. And, I really look at that and value that, because how we're different than a lot of companies is we make decisions quickly. But if we make the wrong decision, we pivot quickly too, and we realize it. So we don't take forever to make a decision. And because of that, we're confident making decisions, because if it's not the right one, oh, well, we'll change direction and correct it. So that's what I love about what I do.
And you came into an industry with no direct knowledge or background, so you didn't know what the rules were. And you went down the path of having to play within what I would call arcane rules inside the system, and just systematically asked questions and found ways to do things more effectively than they've ever really been done when dealing with Medicare and the FDA. Is that still part of the culture? I mean, I know you were able to be disruptive early. Can you continue to do that?
Well, so that's, I would call, one of our biggest challenges is dealing with the regulatory side of it. So with the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, their goal is to protect the public and to make sure that the public is safe, whether it's food or medicine or whatever it is that is used or ingested by human beings. One of the challenges we found is that, there are a lot of bad actors out there, that because of that, we feel that some of the regulatory hurdles have been higher than they need to be. With CMS, Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, we've been awarded reimbursement codes. We play by the rules. We stay within the lines. There are other people that don't do it. Because of that, at times it can be difficult dealing with CMS as well, because they don't know who we are. I mean, we're a company in Arizona. They're in Washington, D.C. They make the rules. And one of the things we learned is you can't fight the government. So a lot of times it's better just to play along. We've spent a lot of money on attorneys. Most of them worked at the FDA or Department of Justice. We're working with lobbyist groups to help to get our point across to the people in Washington that we want to make a difference. So our goal is to help people, and our goal is to get through these hurdles as fast as we can, and checking the boxes and making sure that we're compliant. So we understand that.
So that's right. Those are those boring things that we have to do to make the business actually operate. Will you share with us your products and what it is that you're actually what you created, brought to market, and you have your flagship product and a new one that's getting ready to launch. So you tell us a little bit about those?
Sure. So we had a technology that we acquired from a company, Caraderm of Colombia. We ended up calling it My Own Skin. And it used a skin sample from the patient and blood from the patient. And then we seeded it and placed it on a collagen extracellular matrix. And what doctors found is it helped the patient heal. A lot of patients, diabetes is prevalent not only in the United States, but across the world. In the US, 34 million people have diabetes. Another 80 to 90 million are undiagnosed or borderline. Globally, there are about 440 million people that have it, and it's growing at a rampant rate as more people are acquiring the Western diet. So what My Own Skin does, using the patient's own cells, is help the patient heal wounds, whether it's a diabetic foot ulcer, a venous leg ulcer, any type of non-healing chronic wound, a burn. And then the new product, Dermostat, is similar to My Own Skin, where we use the patient cells. We do not use blood, and it is mixed with a preservative, collagen, that basically the physician can apply to the patient. Monday is our kickoff on April 4th, but tomorrow we have 5 patients that are being treated locally here with the technology. And we've seen outstanding results. And again, because it's autologous from oneself versus allograft from someone else, people seem to heal much better with their own cells. So it's very exciting to launch the new product Dermostat.
And so with the new product not requiring and not using blood with the preservative, it's stable for a longer duration of time before it has to be used. So production is easier.
It's considered minimally manipulated by the FDA. And because it's minimally manipulated, we're not mixing it or combining with anything else. It's just the patient's skin cells with an FDA-approved medical grade collagen. That is a gel that can be applied to a wound. And the benefit is with a wound, you have tunnel wounds, and wounds kind of like the surface of our planet have different levels and shapes. And this fills in the wound versus just using a membrane, which can sit on top of it, kind of like a napkin, but it's not touching all the places that it needs to touch. So it's very exciting technology.
It is very exciting, and it's exciting because the impact is almost immediate, right? The patients will see the benefit in days and weeks.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely fantastic. As we're coming out of COVID, I mean, you were growing your business as the pandemic hit. What are some of the challenges that you see as we're coming out of this and we're returning to a business as usual, although it's a new usual?
Well, I think getting people to realize that we're past COVID, that we need to move forward. I think the hospitals, when their COVID was running rampant, is that they were not allowing other procedures to occur. People with non-healing wounds were put on hold, so their wounds got worse, or they passed away, or they had an amputation. So the outcomes were not great. Now that the COVID basically we're past the peak and we're at the end of it and there aren't as many hospitalizations, hospitals are back to business and surgery centers on treating patients and helping people. And people that have non-healing chronic wounds, it greatly affects their life because there are a lot of things they can't do. Many of them can't work. They can't play golf. They can't go for a walk because they've got this wound that's open. And when you think about the skin, it protects us from the outer environment, which has a lot of nasty things in it that can really do a lot of damage to us.
Absolutely. And again, right, this treatment starts, the impact is so immediate and the ability to help the body heal itself. What are some of the opportunities that you see for the future for biosciences in general, for what you're doing with your company? Where do you see the next steps? Where are you headed?
So BioLab Sciences, we're all about finding new ways to help the body heal itself. We're looking at new technologies to help the body heal. We're testing different things. We have laboratories down in South America and Colombia where we have people working on new ideas for us. We have different things that I can't talk about at this point, but we think some of them can be definite game changers. For instance, if you can take skin and regrow skin, can you do the same with ligaments, with tendons, with muscles, with other parts of the body? So these are all future things that other people are working on as well, but very exciting to help improve the quality of life for people. When you think of mortality, typically it's a systemic failure in the body, whether it's cancer, heart attack, liver, kidney, whatever it is. But if you can regrow that organ with the patient's own cells, so it's their organ, and it's not like an organ transplant where they have to suppress the immune system and then the patient's limited in what they can do, that improves the quality of life. And then the next question is, how long can people live? Because now if you're living longer, there are other things of, Social Security, will they have enough money? If you can regrow joints instead of doing joint replacement, cartilage, things like that. So there's a lot of exciting things on the horizon.
Bob, that's all straight out of science fiction. That's fabulous.
Used to be. Yeah,
Used
but
to be. Fair.
they'll look back. They'll look back 100 years from now. Like we look back when they used to use leeches and they used to do bleeding, and we're thinking like, oh my God, what were they thinking of? And someday someone will look back at our modern medicine and go, oh my God, what were they thinking of? You know, you have this whole opioid addiction crisis, other things that could have been avoided. So it'll be interesting 100 years from now. We won't be here, but it'd be interesting to know what they're going to talk about as far as our modern medicine. Did we have it right, or were we way off?
Well, and I think that, and I think I can say that you subscribe to this line of thinking, right? We make the best decisions we can with the information at hand, and then we learn and we make our next decisions with that next set of information. So
Right.
It's an ongoing journey, and your team is focused on moving things forward and that thinking and looking at the R&D that you can't talk about has to be so fascinating.
We don't. I love astrophysicist Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he says we don't know what we don't know, and I believe that. And I believe that if you feel you're the smartest person in the room, you're in trouble. So we have, what makes us so successful is we have such diverse backgrounds here, and we welcome diversity, and we welcome people of different backgrounds, different races, different cultures, different sexual preference, different political views, and it really gets you thinking. And if you look at companies, they get what's called groupthink, because you get the same people in the same room week after week, and there are no new ideas. They bring in a consultant, or someone's walking past and comes in and says something, and everyone's like, oh my God, that's brilliant. But they haven't been a part of that conversation, so they weren't tainted with that. I think a lot of my success in healthcare came from, I didn't grow up in this industry, so I don't have the blueprint, and I don't have the preconceived thoughts of you can do this and you can't do that. You know, we're just going to do it and that's it. So, and then people always say, well, how were you able to do that? We haven't been able to do that. Did you try? So.
And isn't that, it's one of those things, the act of simply trying to do something and seeing what happens, right? Because if you don't, the answer is, no.
Right.
You've already, set that up. So you were talking a little bit about your team. How big is your team today?
So there's 73 of us full time.
That's
today,
fantastic.
In our corporate and our lab, and we're looking to continue our growth and get more people in to help us as we go from a national company to an international company.
So you consider yourself a national company, even though your R&D and everything is happening in Colombia. So to becoming an international company is a growth step.
That's a growth step for revenue. So how we're different than a lot of the other biotech or healthcare companies, and we see it all the time when we talk to the companies, is they have great ideas, but they just test and do clinical trials and more testing, and they don't see the need to commercialize the product. Getting the product out there helps people. When you think of all the technologies that are available, we're only seeing a fraction of them. Are these out helping people and then generating revenue for the company so we can further hire more people, do more research, come up with better products and improve products that we already have. So I think that, there's tons of opportunity out there. It's just how you look at it. The glass is either half full or half empty.
Absolutely. And I know that your approach is always on the half full perspective, because there's, an opportunity is nothing but an opportunity.
Right.
One of the things that I love to talk about with my guests is, if I gave you a magic wand, what would you do to change healthcare? The magic wand is very powerful, Bob. It takes away constraints of time, money, resources, right? You just have to see the vision. What is that big vision?
So my vision would be for people to be better educated on diet and food because that's what's creating the diabetes epidemic that we're experiencing in the United States and around the world. I feel if people were better aware of what corn syrup and cornstarch and aspartame and all these different things do, they would be more aware of what they're doing. You know, aspartame in diet soda basically is formaldehyde, which is poison. And I read in one place there is enough poison in 6 cans of Diet Coke. If you ingested that, it would kill you. So I think between neuropathy, where people lose feeling in their limbs, then they get diabetic foot ulcers, then they get amputation. I feel that if I could have the world get educated on diet and what they're putting into their body, there would be less diabetes, there'd be less people with chronic non-healing wounds. So at the end of the day, I think people would be much better off.
I think that is so elegant in its simplicity, right? This isn't rocket science, and you're not asking for a major technology shift, something that has to be understood, figured out. It's not a problem that needs to be solved. We know how to do this.
Right.
And it's just actually mobilizing people to understand what they put in their body and what's inside of these products. And I'll be honest, because of this topic of conversation, I want to be a little bit, disruptive, right? In the United States, what the FDA allows us to consume is horrifying. Aspartame being one example of so many things. Bob, that is absolutely fantastic. And I love the fact that it is something that people can do. Anybody listening right now can actually make steps to affect the change that you're talking about. Right? We can read labels, we can understand what those unnatural things are for ourselves in real time, and hopes that we start to learn more about what happens to our GMOs and all of those other things that we have created and made food that may not actually be natural anymore. And we label it as healthy.
It's a major health issue. It's only going to get worse, as especially globally. When you think of the US, we're 5% of the world's population, but when you look at globally, these other economies that are catching up to ours, and they're acquiring the Western diet of corn syrup, which is, bread and pasta, drinking more soda, things that are not healthy for them. There's a reason 25% of all of our vets in the VA have diabetes. And a lot of them, they weren't taught properly. They weren't trained on what to eat. You grow up, your parents fill a bowl with cereal, fill it with milk, and give it to you. And they give you something that tastes good because they know you'll eat it. But I think as we get past that, we need to learn what's good for us and what's not good for us, because it's a very slippery slope, and it may not happen overnight. It'll take decades to catch up with you, but when it catches up to you, oh boy, I've seen the outcomes, and it's not good.
It's not, and we should know better. All right, we have the best medical care at our disposal. We have educational systems at our disposal, and our American desire for convenience, which is my take on it, right, is what has made all of these things become processed, become artificial, because it takes time to cook a meal at night, to chop vegetables and cook them, and grill protein and put together the proportions that are healthy and get them on the table for the family. And sometimes, that driving through the fast food line seems so much more convenient. And
for mom who's got 3 kids at home and a husband, it's easier for her to drive through and pick it up and then just put it out. And all right, dinner's here. But over time, then people start liking that. And they're like, oh, McDonald's, that's great. But,
it's easy, it's simple, it's bad for us.
Convenient, but very bad. Yes.
Yeah, very bad for us. Well, Bob, I am so grateful for taking some time out of your day and sharing it with me. This has been a wonderful conversation. BioLab Sciences is innovative and is disrupting the industry. And I am so glad to have taken a few moments to share that story with our listeners and our viewers, because I see nothing but great things on the horizon, and the growth that you're experiencing, I think, is the beginning of the rocket ship ride for you.
Yes.
Thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Lisa. I appreciate it.
You have just experienced Break Everything with Lisa L. Levy. Critical conversations on directed disruption that makes a difference.